So today I want to talk about emotional triggers. It's a word that we hear a lot. It's a word that it's just everywhere. And the thing is, there are actually two things that drive emotional triggers. And so I want to explain to you how they work and what they mean and how to determine which of these messages you're getting when you have an emotional trigger. And especially with your attachment style. Now, avoidant attachment style tends to interpret their emotional triggers differently than maybe an anxious attachment style or a secure attachment style. So I want to dive into that, give you some clarity, and help you have a lot of discernment around what's going on so you can actually respond to those triggers in an appropriate way. And if you're new here, I'm Ketra Thompson, and what I do with my clients is I combine custom one-on-one hypnotherapy with relationship coaching and attachment style coaching so that we can get to the heart of what's going on in the subconscious programming, because our subconscious mind is running over 95% of everything we think, feel, and do, but we don't typically have access to it. So if you'd like to learn more about that or to set up a consultation, you can check out the links in the description below where you can set up that consultation call. You and I can chat. There's no charge for it, but we can get to the heart of what's going on with you and at the very least get you a lot more clarity about what to do, where to start, and what's going on. So you'll want to check that out. Okay, so most people would say if they trigger you, that's a red flag. You should get away, you should run, you should, absolutely take that as a red flag. But the problem is triggers come from a couple of different places within you. They are emotional wounds, and they can be telling you one of two things. They're either telling you, hey, pay attention. Something's going on here that is not okay. Their behavior's not okay. Something's wrong. And it's telling you to take an inventory of what's going on and keep yourself safe. On the other hand, emotional triggers are also an indication of old wounds, unhealed wounds, and the parts of you that still feel insecure. So you need to be able to have the discernment to know which one of these is accurate when you are emotionally triggered. So I would like to say that the one that says take stock of what's going on right now is more like a real-time reactive response versus an old reaction to something old. And so they're not always a red flag. They do mean stop and pay attention no matter what. But you really want to pay attention to what the inner narrative for you is when you're feeling emotionally triggered. So the inner narrative is the story you're telling yourself, and you might not even really be aware of it because that story's been going on for so long. So you really have to slow down and pay attention. But if someone told me, you're a bad mom, even though I might not like it, I might feel a little like, hey, who are you to say that? I know I'm a good mom. Not perfect, but I know I'm a good mom. And so it wouldn't really make me emotionally triggered in the same way. It might make me irritated, but it wouldn't make me emotionally triggered. I'd be able to see the situation and go, I don't know what is up with this person, or what they're dealing with, but that's not about me, right? So if someone told you something that is not accurate to who you are and you feel really secure in yourself on that issue, it's not going to really derail you. Now, if someone told you something that you are insecure about, that's what's going to derail you. And so that insecurity is an indication of an unhealed wound. Unhealed attachment trauma, unhealed complex trauma, unhealed childhood stuff, even unhealed stuff from your adult life. And so we want to have the discernment to know the difference. So how do we know the difference? Well, we have to pay attention to the inner narrative, and we have to ask ourselves, we have to slow down the process and go, okay, what am I feeling? When did I first feel this way under the age of 18? And that's going to give you some insight. Did someone criticize me about this before? Is this an old wound? What am I feeling? And if you can identify that same feeling from before, you have to do a reality check that says, is this old or is this present? Because if it's a real present thing, there's something I need to do about it. There's an action step that I need to take. And so let's just take, for example, the avoidant attachment style. Now, they have, like everyone else, their own insecurities, their own wounds. And when they are questioned on something that they don't feel very secure about, they don't think they can do very well, they tend to get defensive or shut down, or they get flooded with feelings. So let's say they're being questioned about a relationship or communication. They know they struggle there. And a lot of times I'll have clients that are dismissive avoidant just say things like, well, I'm just, you know, I don't know, I'm just not good at this. I just don't do relationships very well. Or it takes me a long time, or like they have an awareness. So if you criticize something that has not been healed, they're going to have either a big reaction or they're going to be flooded with emotions, which makes them shut down internally and not be able to communicate what they're feeling, what they need. And their way to protect themselves is to just pull back, go silent, and turn inward. So they go back to their original protective functions. Just like an anxious person might go back to their original protective functions by pressing in and saying, well, help me understand. I need to know more. What do you mean? What does that mean? Are you saying this? Did you mean that? And they might press in for clarity in hopes that they'll get what they need so they can feel better. And so whenever there's a trigger for you in a relationship, you've really got to look at the situation and you've got to be able to say, what's going on inside of me? Is this true about me? And it's a tricky thing because if you are in something that's like narcissistic, that person's probably little by little beating you down with bullying, with negative comments, with underhanded comments, with jokes that are at your expense. And eventually the repetition of that starts making you question your own reality and you have a lot of cognitive dissonance. And so you can ask someone that's trustworthy, that's a close friend of yours, that isn't in the situation, but someone you know is going to be real with you. Hey, is this true about me? Hey, do I do this? Is this a pattern that I have? Get some outside input from someone you trust so that you can see a little bit more clearly. Because if you have any cognitive dissonance going on, you're going to have a hard time seeing the truth, because cognitive dissonance is like holding two separate realities at once. Like, this person is a good person. I've seen them be good and kind, and they are also awful and mean and vindictive. Which one is right? And you're trying to decide internally. And there isn't a decision you can come to really when you're stuck in cognitive dissonance. So it's really good to ask for outside help and input with someone that you trust, because they're going to have insight that you're not going to have while you're in the situation. Sometimes when you're in a situation, you're kind of blinded by your own feelings. Now, the one thing that dismissive avoidants tend to do in relationships is they tend to believe it should be easy. It should always be easy. If there's anything that is difficult, if there's pushback, if there's any uncomfortable feelings, that must mean this is not the right person and I should get out of this. They believe that in a very unhealthy way, because no relationship is going to be easy like that. There's always going to be pushback, especially on the things where you're not healed. Someone else is going to hold up a mirror and say, this is hurting me. This is not okay. And you're going to have to be self-reflective about it instead of blame shifting back and going, well, if you just didn't do XYZ, I wouldn't be that way. Right? And so I say this because it's true. This is the narrative that the dismissive avoidant often has, that it should just be easy and there shouldn't be any issues at all, any pushback. But in reality, there always is. And at the same time, I want to say it shouldn't be difficult all the time. If you're in a relationship, you should not be dealing with walking on eggshells, not knowing what version of someone you're going to get, every day being different, some days being loving and attentive, and other days bullying and silent treatment. Like, that's emotionally abusive behavior. And I don't want to say that, oh, don't expect it to be easy, and not mention that that's toxic. Okay? It should be easy enough to be yourself. You should feel like you can be yourself in a relationship, like you can be the quirky, odd version of yourself, where you can express your needs and communicate. All of that should happen. But if there are patterns, the other person's probably going to hold the mirror up to you and you're going to see them, and it's going to feel triggering. And you're going to have to sit with that and say, is this something that's a pattern for me? Is this something I need to work on? Is this something that I've been ignoring most of my life? And the truth is, if it is, you can take action steps to work on that. But if you're in a toxic relationship, that person, even if you change in that area, is going to continue to pick you apart in some other area. And so you need to know that there's no amount of yourself that you can change or be self reflective about to satisfy a toxic or unhealthy person or relationship. But you should be self reflective enough to go, hey, what's going on inside of me? Is this a pattern? Because triggers are just information. They're just giving you information that something's going on in there. There's something unhealed. There's a younger version of you probably that is still afraid inside of you. And so it's really important to be able to have discernment and slow down that process and get self-reflective. Now, with my clients, I do that deep subconscious work, and we do work with the inner child in that process as well, because that inner child in you that's still afraid needs to know that they're safe now, that things are okay, that they, have the safety of the adult you, because the younger you, the little you, the inner child you did not have the safety of being able to provide for themselves, take care of themselves, resource themselves, reach out and communicate. They didn't have that. They were dependent on a caregiver that probably had their own issues. And so we don't want to automatically assume that every trigger is just a red flag and we should run from it. Your emotional triggers have got to be self-examined with self-reflection and curiosity instead of assumptions. Don't jump to assumptions. Take some time to listen to what's going on inside of you and get a big picture perspective. Zoom out from the situation. Ask for input from trustworthy people outside of you and determine, is this an emotional trigger I'm having that I need to deal with? Or is this emotional trigger telling me that something is really not right here? And so what's underneath like anger is typically this feeling of it's not fair. This thing is not fair. Something's not fair. And so you might still feel like it's not fair, and it still might be something you have to work on within yourself. But you also might feel like it's not fair because it literally isn't fair. And you're only going to get that kind of perspective if you zoom out from the situation, look at patterns, look at how much time you've had to collect data about yourself and the other person, how many interactions you have like this. And that's going to give you the bigger picture perspective. And that's why it's so important that when you're in relationships, you give those relationships time to look at the big picture, time to really pay attention to what's going on and look for patterns, because only time will tell you what patterns are prevalent with someone else and what keeps coming up within yourself. So again, just to recap, you want to slow it down. You want to get curious. What am I feeling? When's the first time I felt like this? Is this an old wound? Is it present day danger I should be paying attention to? Maybe it's both. But you've got to slow down the process and get self-reflective about it before you're ever going to have clarity about what's going on. It's not necessarily a red flag for you to have an emotional trigger. It's information for you to act on. And the problem is that we are all born with a guidance system within us. Our feelings are telling us what we need. But as we grow up, we get dismissed. We get told, oh, get over it. Oh, that's no big deal. Oh, that's nothing to cry about. And we get disconnected from our feelings. But the feelings don't go away. They're still in us, but we just no longer know what to do to meet the need that they are informing us about. And so there's a lot of confusion. And part of what I do with my clients is we reconnect that disconnect, getting you reconnected to what your feelings are telling you so you can actually meet your needs in real time instead of building up resentment, instead of blame shifting, instead of refusing to look at self. You can actually meet your needs in real time, and you can heal those wounds in the process. So, again, if you would like to learn more about that or you'd like to have that conversation, set up that consultation call in the link below. I also have a new program out that is sort of a DIY with some one on one help, group help. It is Attachment Detox, and it is for heartbreak and going through releasing unhealthy attachments in your life, people you maybe aren't getting over, you're ruminating about, there's an issue. It gives you hypnosis recordings and access to my live group coaching calls so that you can get specific coaching with me. But it also gives you a lot of stuff you can do on your own. And this is for the person who's not really quite ready for the one-on-one work, because this is a very inexpensive option versus the custom one-on-one 12-week program that I do with my full clients. So you can check out all those details below. And as always, I really appreciate it if you could click like and subscribe so you could be notified every time I post a new video. And until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.